Committee. My name is Maria Weingarten, and I'm a founder of CT169 Strong. I'm also on the Affordable Housing Committee in New Canaan, and I am a member of the Board of Finance in New Canaan. I'm also a realtor. So a lot of these interests and concerns intersect for me, and I just wanted to share some thoughts that I have with you. I do have serious concerns about SB 6 and some thoughts on HB 5336 and 5335, but given 3 minutes and 7 bills that were originally in my concern, I figure I'll focus right now first on HB 5333, and if you want to ask questions, please do. So I support this study of the affordable housing appeals process. I just want to add a couple of points related to this. So 5,000 units of affordable that have been created under 830G are expiring in the next 5 years. And it grows and it escalates from there. It's 10,000 in 10 years, it's 20 in 15 years, it's another 27 in 20 years. So the concern I have, I'm sorry, can you all see me? Something just happened with my screen. Sorry. Okay. So what we need to do is come up with a way to maintain our units. I see that there was a bill in there that tried to re-up the units after 40 years to try to renegotiate them. The city of Stamford does a 99-year affordability. It might be worth studying something like that if you're considering looking at these things. Also, it was mentioned already that New Canaan has done projects that are 100% affordable. Those are forever affordable. And they also help us to reach moratoriums. In theory. So I think that that's a really good opportunity. It might be worth studying that as a method to really create affordable, because we cannot just focus on doing these set aside units, and especially because they expire after 40 years, we're just creating a hamster wheel and a compounded problem in the years going forward. And regarding the moratoriums, I just wanted to put out a couple of points. Only 11 towns in Connecticut have ever achieved a moratorium. Of those, 6 of them were for some reason turned down, and then took another 6 months to a year to file again. So I think, it just, to me, maybe highlights that it would be better if there was more collaboration in the process, so that when towns are trying to file, that they can work together to make sure that they're ready to go, and that they don't have to go through this process where they're denied and then delayed and then again having to refile. And then the last point I'll make regarding using those excess units that were the holdover units, if you want to call them, those extra units that were not applied to a moratorium, when you consider the cost and how expensive it is to build affordable, and that these are costs that are being undertaken by these towns, and you have land and you know that land is scarce, you should really be building optimally on your land, because you want to make sure
your time has expired. Can you please summarize?
You want to be cost effective. So the best thing to do is to build to the land, not just to a moratorium. And if you do that, you will build more units faster than in the way that it was currently interpreted that turned down New Canaan. But I do have more to say about this if anybody wants to ask me some questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Representative Scott.
Thank you, Maria, for coming to testify. We did have a conversation earlier with Representative O'Day. I know he represents New Canaan. You mentioned you're on New Canaan Affordable Housing Committee. I might have wrote that down wrong. But what I'm going to ask a very similar situation to what I'm just curious about the moratorium piece of what the issues you guys are going through. Do you believe as being part of this process? Do you think it's a process-driven issue, or do you believe that there are substantial issues within that process? Like my issue, I guess my question is it the language that's causing a problem, or is it just the actualization in the process of following that language?
Well, I think here the interpretation of the language was changed, because when we received our first moratorium, it was a congratulatory letter that said, congratulations, you've received your moratorium. You have X number of units left that you can use toward a subsequent moratorium. And then Brookfield received their moratorium and then ours was denied. So within a couple months later, because there was a change in interpretation. So, that's just the fact pattern I have. I can't make any assumptions on why or how, but that's what that's what has occurred and what the fact patterns are. So I think, in any way, I think however you can incentivize towns, however we can work collaboratively to create more opportunity would be the best solution for all towns. And I think the more we have these opportunities to have good outcomes and for towns to get moratoriums, the more you'll have building of more affordable. And I know I've been to some housing discussions where I've met people who know people who are now living in Canaan Parish and are absolutely thrilled and are so happy with it. So it's been a very successful, very positive experience, and I hope that we can do more of that and be more collaborative. But and I do have some more to add on that because part of the issue is funding, right? So when you look at 830G, part of the issue is that we have 4 categories for it, and certain towns, based on whatever property values are or income levels are, we don't qualify. So when you have 4 categories that are very specific, and the first category is state and federal assisted housing. So that's any of these LIHTC, these loan tax credits, these grants, anything that comes from the state or federal government. And so when some towns get those, some cities get the 9% ones that would pay for 70% of a project, and other towns don't get them. That makes a big difference on why a town may have units or not have units. The second category is tenants, rental assistance, so vouchers. When you look at the vouchers, voucher allocations are going to mostly the largest cities in Connecticut. So when you look at Hartford, it has 8,991 vouchers. New Haven has 7,632. New Canaan has 33. So I think you have to wonder as to how vouchers are being allocated and why, and maybe there's going to be a need to look at that and consider, if land is more expensive and housing cost is higher in Fairfield County and in other parts of the state, maybe those areas need vouchers that have higher values. Maybe they need more vouchers because it's more challenging in those communities than maybe other parts of Connecticut that are more affordable. So I think we need to have a more comprehensive look at how vouchers are allocated and also the portability of these vouchers, and maybe consider making these vouchers centralized through a state housing authority so that there's one wait list so that everybody is on that one list, and then vouchers can go to the individual from the state and they can be portable and they can move wherever they like. That might also help a lot more voucher utilization, which according to a recent report that I mentioned in last week's hearing, only about 50% of the vouchers were getting utilized back in 2022. Category 3, going back to that, is CHAFA loans and USDA. We don't have farmland in New Canaan as recognized by USDA, and the CHAFA, there's very few number of properties and income levels that qualify for that as well. So when you look at these categories and you recognize that, the only category that certain towns can use is category 1. And if they're not getting assistance from the state or federal, it's very expensive to build and create. So I think this is why 830G has been such a bear, why it's been so hard to achieve a 10% threshold. Maybe it was never really intended to get to a threshold, because if you look at the 169 towns, only 12 have over 10% in that column 1. And the rest of them all have vouchers or any of these other categories. And again, as I said, those are all out of the hands of communities. So I can't control necessarily if the state will give us a grant to develop. And I can't control if the state will give us vouchers. So, and I can't control if a person is going to be of a certain income level that will do CHAFA.
Your answer.
So these are the challenges with how 830G currently works. So the last thing is Massachusetts has 40B, And 40B has a height limit, which is something that Ryan Fazio had mentioned. And that I see that there were some bills here that were penalizing if a town should decide under an 830G to go to litigation. Well, there's less litigation under 40B, mainly because they require that the development be in line within what's already in the area.